Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Big Luke here. It's the man of the free studios, freedom of mind, money, and media. They know what that's about. You do too, Phil. I know you do. But guys, today I have with me, I don't even know his last name. Phil, what's your last name?
McKnight.
Phil McKnight. Phil McKnight is the CEO and founder of Ghostfruit Incorporated. Ghostfruit is, well, you know what? I don't want to take any creative license here. I kind of have an idea of what I believe it is. Why don't you tell them what it is?
Sure thing. So Ghostfruit is a hosted Bitcoin mining company.
Just a little bit closer with the mic.
Yeah. So what we do is we will we're basically building data centers that are mining Bitcoin.
Okay.
And what that does for our clients, like instead of mining for myself, what I do is I buy the machines, I sell them to people, and I run it for them. So we sort of fill the role of being like a property broker and developer and manager. So the same reason someone would rent out like a rental property or buy a house to rent out on Airbnb, someone would also get a machine from me because it just earns them a steady stream of cash flow in the form of Bitcoin.
Okay. So want to make sure I break it down correctly. You do Bitcoin mining, and somebody gives you an investment. You go buy the appropriate equipment for them.
Yep.
You facilitate the mining of the Bitcoin. I'm sure you charge a modest fee for your services, and they get to earn money from the mining of the Bitcoin.
Exactly. So we are able to finance the machine. So like we cover the cost over 3 years. So, predictably, not with variable power rates. It's all baked in and bundled in. And we buy a top of the line machine. We will install it in a state of the art facility using something called immersion. It's really cool. What we do is we take the fans off the machines and then we submerge them in a tank that has a special dielectric fluid. So it's like running under liquid, and it's able to like perform more effectively. So we're offering just everybody who wants to get into it the same access and the same impact of, like a really large scale Bitcoin miner who's operating at a really high level of efficiency. So we're doing this for people and saving them the learning curve and all the the uncertainty that's in the industry, like all the bad machines you can buy and all the the lack of trust that you have with the people that you're engaging with. We handle all of that, and we are making the investment more approachable by, rather than making you spend like $15,000 up front, it's like $1,500 a quarter or $6,000 a year to be able to just get the steady stream of revenue coming in.
Okay, so there's the sales pitch on Ghostfruit. I love it. I love it. I love when I have an entrepreneur in my midst. It's like, I don't feel so alone in the world trying to sell anymore. No, that's awesome, man. The package is basically you handle all the bullshit. You mine the Bitcoin for them. You have your process of how you do it better than everybody else. And it sounds like, it's down to a science at this point. You're obviously very good at what you do, man. So the reason Phil's here, guys, is because he was referred to me from somebody in my network of the geniuses that have taught me things in this world. One of them sent me this gentleman, says, this is a guy you got to talk to because he knew that I was trying to do a show on Bitcoin. And I needed somebody with a good working knowledge. I needed somebody that could answer a lot of questions, that had a good personality, that could bring this information forward in a way that people could understand it, right? Some of the things you just said, I know half my audience is like, emergent what? You know what I mean? Because I kind of am too. But the general prospect is there of what you're doing, but I know because of our conversation that you have a way to convey this information to where the average person can understand it. So I want to dive right in, Phil. So we are learning, as the average Joe, about this thing called cryptocurrency. Most notably, the one we hear the most, I think, is probably Bitcoin, okay? And myself, amongst many other people, are wondering, what the hell is this thing? And then we are told it's a digital asset. To which most of us go, I've heard the word asset used in, Charles Schwab commercials. So ultimately, why don't you explain to them what an asset is? Because money is an asset, cash is an asset, the US dollar is an asset, but the evangelists for cryptocurrency are telling us that this is a much better asset or store of value than cash and money that we've all known since we were itty bitty kids. So can you kind of walk us through that?
Yeah, absolutely. So what I would say about assets in general, like assets are just things. They're things that you buy or hold that are, like in financial terms, they're making you money at some point. And cash is an asset. Like each asset has different things about it. It has different attributes. One of the assets of money, of the dollar, is something called liquidity, which means that you can spend it, right? Like it's really easy to get and then spend somewhere else. Whereas like a Maserati has value, but it's less liquid than a dollar because, you can't just like trying to find someone to swap like 100 water bottles or like whatever, like 100,000 water bottles for, like a Maserati. It's going to be hard to find something where you can just spend it. So like the attributes of money, and good money is high liquidity. It is abundance but scarcity. Like there's a controlled supply. There's not like an infinitely growing amount. We're not going to see crazy inflation like in the Weimar Republic or in Zimbabwe or Venezuela.
Like we can't print it in our basement type of thing.
Exactly. Okay. Yeah. And like, or the government that's in charge of it is not wildly printing it to like cover its own debts. That's the issue that we come into more often than that. Like the bigger impact on like the value of the valuation, the value of money is what is the economic policy around it. So Bitcoin is a technology, and just like the dollar is a technology, the dollar is a technology which replaced coins, right? Like cash replaced coins replaced barter replaced, just direct working, like like doing whatever we want, like through the division of labor. And what Bitcoin is the next step of that. Money is important, and because it's so important, most of the time we entrust, or there's 180 currencies in the world, 181 including Bitcoin, and it gets a lot bigger if you're also including all the other cryptocurrencies. But 180 of those those currencies are issued by governments, like the U.S., China, the European Union, and what they do is because it's so important, we're entrusting the central banks and we're entrusting the government to take care of this thing for us. But the issue is we can't always do that. Venezuelans couldn't do that. Germany couldn't do that during the Weimar Republic. Zimbabweans couldn't do that. And there's a big question of whether we can even trust our own American government, even though our currency is a lot stronger than almost all the other ones. And it's built on stronger economic principles. But the question is, are they strong enough? And is the behavior of the people that are running these systems going to be intelligent enough and careful enough and intuitive enough to be able to take care of the value of money?
So that's a great point. And I think that's something that plagues me. Constantly, right? One of the things that I've learned as I've grown as a businessman, as a human being really, is that everything that we deal with in life is just a product of who's in control of it, right? So I think when you're younger, you've got your lunch money and you're paying the lunch lady for the chocolate milk and the cookie, or 2 cookies if you were me, and your taco on Tuesday. And you know that it's this currency that the government provides. It's how we buy things. It's how we save money. It's how we store value, okay? And it's never going away. It's money. It is what it is, and it's spent to buy things, right? As time goes on, you realize that there are people that have vastly larger sums of money than others. And then as even more time goes by, you understand that there's nefarious reasons for that, as well as good moral reasons for that. You find that there's reasons, like hard work and determination and entrepreneurial spirit, where some people have larger sums than others. Then you learn that there's things like legacies and dynasties where there's old family money, where people just are trust fund brats that have millions at their disposal for no good reason other than their last name is Rockefeller. Okay, no disrespect to the Rockefellers. I know none of them. It's just a well-known name.
I'm sure they're listeners.
Yeah, I'm sure they are. So where I take issue is now in this later part of my life, and I'm kind of speaking to the audience here as I'm speaking to you. I think a lot of people don't get the fact that it's just men, and more importantly, 9 people, really, when you get into terms of the Fed, okay, that are in control of our supply of money. And when you have human beings involved, there's greed, right? There's selfish behavior. There's selfless behavior. There's more things at play, right?
There's good decision making, bad decision making,
100%.
uninformed. There's a lot that people are responding to the circumstances around them, either for self-interest or for societal interest. Like a good public servant is seeking the benefit of society, but the question is, how effectively are they doing that? Are they actually benefiting us by, implementing, increasing the interest rates? Are they actually benefiting us by decreasing the interest rates? Would it not be, might it be better if there was an alternative system? And that's what Bitcoin is. Bitcoin is a currency which has nobody in charge of it, just the rules of the software that it's built upon. Nobody can interact with it. Nobody can unleash a tab and then double the supply of Bitcoin that's out there. It's introduced at a steady rate, 6.4 new Bitcoin every 10 minutes right now. And then in 2024, that's going to reduce by half, 3.25 new Bitcoin every 10 minutes. And then every 4 years after that, it's going to decrease. That issuance of new Bitcoin into the supply is going to continue to decrease over the next 120 years until 2140, when the last Bitcoin will be mined. You could think about it like gold, like a steady amount of gold being introduced, or oil. There's a finite amount of oil in the world. And as that oil becomes more scarce to pull up, it's going to become higher in value. The difference between oil and Bitcoin, obviously, is, apart from all the other attributes, is Bitcoin isn't going to be depleted when it's used. It still continues to exist.
Right. Oil combusts and it's turned into gas and it goes off into the sky. Bitcoin will be something that remains tangible and able to use. So you said a couple things there, and for you, it was a fluid sentence. It made perfect sense. For our listeners, there's a lot there to unpack, okay? So you said the last Bitcoin will be mined. Has somebody got a pickaxe and they're tearing away at the side of a PC tower and pulling little chunks of gold out of the hard drive? I mean, what is mining Bitcoin?
Yeah, so mining Bitcoin is, so there's the Bitcoin, when we're talking about Bitcoin, there's a Bitcoin, which is, like a unit of the currency, one of the 21 million possible Bitcoin that will ever exist. That's
okay, so there's 21 million Bitcoin possible to be mined.
Yeah, right now there's about 19,400,000 in circulation, or like that are held by different people. In their wallets, they're being spent, and 21 million is the maximum supply of Bitcoin that will ever exist. When we're also talking about Bitcoin, when we're talking about the network, we can talk about the Bitcoin network, which is the number, like the computers that are validating and mining and validating. So there's two kinds of computers on the Bitcoin network. There are nodes, which are maintaining something called consensus. It's not like a centralized server. There's no like one big data center. Like Visa has 4 big data centers that are processing all of the global financial transactions that is done over the Visa network.
Okay.
The Bitcoin network, instead of having those 4 run by one company, it breaks up those data centers and decentralizes them in people's homes, in large scale mines here and there. And rather than having it be in one facility, it's like there are the 2 roles of people that are watching and agreeing, like making sure that all the rules of the network that are followed. And then there are the people that are trying to update. So the watchers, the nodes, are creating, like they're maintaining a list of all the transactions that have happened and the most recent series of transactions over the last 10 minutes.
When you say transactions, you mean people buying and selling Bitcoin to each other?
Yeah.
Like I say, hey man, that's a badass pair of sneakers. Let me buy those. I'll give you 0.2 of a Bitcoin. You're like, all right, cool. And then we exchange Bitcoin. Somewhere on some computer in Zimbabwe, that transaction might be recorded by a watcher.
So in every computer around the world, it's going
to
be
simultaneously, they're all being recorded at all times by all the nodes.
Yes. So they're all.
So everybody knows that I just bought your shoes from you.
They know that Bitcoin wallet X sent X Bitcoin, or sent, they know that your Bitcoin wallet. They don't know you're attached to it. They just know that a Bitcoin wallet sent this much Bitcoin to this other Bitcoin wallet.
Do they know my physical location?
No, not unless you have separately, like not on the network itself.
Okay.
Like if like you can track, like people will publish their Bitcoin wallets, sometimes you need to share it to actually make the transaction themselves.
Okay.
But unless the information has been publicized in some way, it's just a wallet. It's just a piece of code.
So the transactions, the registry of these transactions is more so of just keeping the coins accountable. Mm-hmm. We know how many there are supposed to be. We know where they've gone by way of wallet to wallet, not necessarily geographic location to geographic location.
Exactly.
It's just everybody, a group of peers, mm-hmm. a decentralized network, which in simple terms means all people working together and nobody in one spot governing everybody at one time. Just a group of people making sure that everything is status quo.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, just maintaining the list, watching the list be updated, and making sure that the updates to the list, the new series of transactions every 10 minutes, are following all the rules. And if they're not, it just gets rejected. If it is, it gets automatically accepted, and they just move on.
So why wouldn't something be following the rules? Because someone's trying to do something nefarious?
Or yes, it could be that. That's why blockchain is secure, is because unless you're able to control over 51% of all the machines around the world, then you can't force something to happen. It's just, otherwise there's a concept called a fork, which is like a split in the blockchain that happened in Ethereum back in 2016. There was a very famous fork where I think it was like 160 million Ethereum or something like that. I'm blanking on the specific numbers itself, mm-hmm. but there was a bunch of Ethereum that was stolen, and the Ethereum Foundation, with the consensus of, the people that were participating in the Ethereum network at the time, they were like, all right, so we're going to roll this back. We are going to fork the blockchain. We're going to go back in time, and we're going to split it off from where it's happening right now, because we want to reverse the theft of all this Ethereum.
Okay.
And that created 2 networks now. That, the original one that continued, where the theft had occurred and was allowed to occur, people were like, we don't want to jeopardize, or we don't want to allow the network itself to be controlled like this. So they continued in something called Ethereum Classic, which is a different kind of currency. And then there's also now the Ethereum, like main Ethereum. So the Ethereum blockchain forked at that point because there had been a theft that had occurred. That can't happen in Bitcoin. You know, the Bitcoin's operated differently.
Okay.
But that's a reason that it would split or be adjusted.
Okay, so you said a couple times you referred to the Bitcoin blockchain. I mean, man, my mind goes to some chain, you know what I mean, some physical chain or these cords hooking machines together. Unpack for them what a blockchain is, please.
Yeah, so...
Is it the blockchain? Is there only one?
Well, saying the blockchain is like saying the city. You know, like whatever the one that whatever blockchain you're referencing at the time is the blockchain.
Gotcha.
It's so a blockchain is a form of, you know, it's a consensus algorithm.
Okay.
What a consensus algorithm is the algorithm or the process or the rules by which all of those nodes are maintaining their agreement. Those are like those are the rule sets that people are following.
Okay.
And one of those is proof of work. Another one is proof of stake. You know, don't need to tap into those just yet. But the what a blockchain is it's a form of it's a form of consensus algorithm. There's other distributed ledger technologies, right? Decentralized stuff.
Okay.
And a block is a encapsulation of data. You know, it's like a packet of information. If you know anything about computers, like like the internet sends you know, like information over like a data frame called packets. And Bitcoin and the Bitcoin blockchain will send or record transactions over a 10-minute window in something called a block. And that block has a bunch of different information in it. Like, you know, one of the things is the body of it is the transactions that have happened.
Okay.
It's appended with, like, at the end, there is a, you know, like a signature, you know, for the block itself.
Okay.
And there is at the, like, you know, and then, like, at the beginning of it, there is a signature of the previous block. So that's how you, like, have, like, the chain of blocks. So what happens is you have a block and the block is connected to the previous one by the beginning. It matches because the previous one has that same signature at the end. Okay. It has all the data that's inside of it, and then it will have a unique signature for the you know, for the end of it. And then the next block, the next 10-minute window of transactions is going to be recorded with you know, and it's going to begin with the same one that the other one ended with.
Who the hell built this thing, dude? Like, who the hell sat there one day and was like, I'm going to create this mega interesting, intertwining network of mathematical transactions that must agree with each other. I'm going to spread them across the world. There's going to be a network of people that have to agree on it. There's going to be people mining it and doing transactions. I mean, who thinks up something like this and why?
Yeah, that's one of my favorite questions to get. The fun, enigmatic answer is no one knows.
Really? Yeah. Oh, Jesus Christ.
It was published by a guy. I'll start with the why first, actually. So, the internet rocks. You know, the internet is, you know, it allows us to talk to each other from everywhere in the world. It's brought around like an age of connectivity that people could not have imagined before the internet. I asked my grandfather once in his lifetime, what is one thing that he could never have seen happening? And, you know, he said, the internet. And like, it was obvious when he said it, you know, but there was just like I saw in him in that moment the way that the world looked before and afterwards.
How old are you, Phil?
I'm 29.
Okay, so I'm 39, so I've got a decade on you. So when I was in, you know, freshman in high school, you know, late part of middle school, we're talking, early to mid 1990s. There was still a rotary phone on my wall. You could only go so far from that base because the phone was corded to it, and you had to call your buddy's house at just the right time, right before his mouthy mom got on the phone, because if not, there was no such thing as call waiting, and you would just get a busy signal, and you would never talk to him. There was no instant messenger, you know, and it's funny, you say something like instant messenger or MySpace, people are like, oh, you're a dinosaur. That shit was cutting edge when I was a kid, man. And I remember one time I read a magazine. It was either Popular Science or Popular Mechanics, and it was in the library at my high school. And it talked about the adaptation of this technology called the internet, where a wire would be plugged into every computer across the world, and we would all be able to communicate with each other and share information. And there would be these pages called web pages of information, and there would be these search engines that crawled like spiders over the information to find us. And I remember thinking to myself, these guys are fucking goofy. Like computers hooked together, webs, digital spiders. I mean, this is fucking horseshit, right? And then I went over to my buddy's house one time and I heard this screeching noise, and it was the dial-up internet starting. And we hooked a phone cord from his rotary phone in the kitchen to his computer in his bedroom, and we downloaded 3 songs over the 8 hours that we slept. And I woke up, and when I heard that Big Timers song play on his, I believe it was called Winamp, okay, which was a media play. Ruben, you know Winamp? No.
Never heard
You're
of it.
young fry too, man. Ask the OGs about Winamp. But, you know, waiting all night to hear one song and then to be able to burn it on a CD and take it with you in your car. Man, we were revolutionaries, man. It was insane. So now to consider the fact that the world's currency may also be stored on this internet through the sequence of blockchains, it's really quite, that's why I think, you know, somebody like you, when you're explaining it to people, there's probably certain times where there's a little frustration for you. Like, man, don't you just get it? Doesn't it just make sense? You know, for OTs like me, man, it doesn't. It's very hard to understand. But, you know, back to the original question. So we've got this internet, and, you know, it's this revolutionary technology, and somebody decided to make a currency on it. How unpack that? Who, when, why, how does it work?
Yeah. So the internet, when it was being made, there was a certain spirit behind it, right? Like a noble, like, we are connecting people like across the world. This is going to change history. Like, there's going to be before the internet and there's going to be after the internet. And the people that are putting it together are a lot of highly intelligent, highly principled people. Alongside, you know, world governments and academic institutions and the military. You know, like the ARPANET was the first like internet network. It was done by the you know, by like a series of colleges initially in California.
Okay.
And then there was quickly DARPANET, which was, you know, like the DARPA, which is our defense program. So the DARPA, like the military had a very big interest in the internet, and there began to be a conflict between sort of like the principled, spirited academics that are putting this thing together, and then the states and, you know, militaries that are influencing this.
Just like anything else, there's always that classic battle of, we're doing this for noble purposes to help mankind, and it's like, no, bring that over here. We can use that to kill somebody or make money.
Exactly. Yeah. And the so among these people sort of began to talk to each other, right? The academics, they started to talk to each other, and they were aware of the potential future of this technology, the surveillance that it could provide, the control over information, the access to like every bit of knowledge about you, and even worse than the ability to, you know, to like see this information is the ability to stop, you know, like to refrain your ability to, like, you know, to buy, to sell, to act, and to know, you know, like that was what they were really concerned about. So the internet was successfully built in a way which makes that really hard. But these people also realized that they need to have, and there's like, they formed in a group called the cypherpunks.
Okay.
Like, think like 80s, 90s hackers, you know, like Matrix kind of vibes.
Yeah,
you know, they were called the cypherpunks, and they released a manifesto in '93 that was that talked about, we need to come up with a way for anonymous peer-to-peer transactions. Well, we need to be able to come up with a digital kind of money, so that, because the government's going to move this. Like, the government's going to put money on the internet. They'll be able to restrict your flow from here to there. A funny story, actually. So, like, I'm 23, 29. I was born in '93. My father was actually working on one of the really early, he's like an uncle to the internet. He was, you know, working at MIT at the time, and I realize I'm going on a little bit, but this is
man. It's important information. Sure.
He was working on the commercialization of the internet in '93.
Okay, meaning having companies go on there and www.pets.com and shit like that. Okay.
Yeah. How do we start making money with this? We have this thing. How do we start making it self-sustaining? That doesn't need to be funded by the government anymore. And like, there's economic drivers around it. The first thing that...
And was he working for a company that had him doing this, or was he an academic at the time?
He was working for, I think, DARPA.
Okay.
I think he was working for, it was an academic project that involved, like, you know, like it was like in response to the, like, what's his name? President, Bill Clinton.
Clinton.
Yeah. Like there was the, like,
old cigar Bill.
Yeah. And Vice President, damn it.
Al Gore.
Al Gore. Yeah. So the Gore bill was like related to the commercialization of the internet. In response to that, my dad was working on this in like academic institutions.
Okay.
The first thing, the cypherpunks released their manifesto in March of 93. 93.
Okay.
I was born in July of 93. And then in the first months that I was born, the cypherpunks' first act as a collective group was to DOS, like denial of service, attack my father's work, like in trying to commercialize the internet on behalf of private companies in the States.
Okay.
Which he still has some feelings about. So long story short, the cypherpunks wanted there to be a way for people to turn, they knew that money was going to come to the internet, and they wanted there to be a way to do it anonymously online.
Okay.
And
without the government controlling
without the government controlling with it.
Imagine that.
And there's the encryption that goes there were a number of attempts that went through it. Digicash, what I think was 83, Bitgold, Bitcash, Hashcash. There was a number of attempts, B-money, of cryptocurrencies before Bitcoin, but they couldn't solve all the problems. They couldn't make an economically competitive currency, one that would be self-sustaining, one which would work, one which would grow, and the biggest thing that they were trying to do was, double spending, right? Like if I copy paste a GIF, or an image, then I send it to you. Now there's two images. Right?
Yeah.
We can't have that with money. Money needs to not be replicated. Otherwise
Right.
It just doesn't work.
Makes sense.
So the cypherpunks started a community of people that were, cryptographers, math people, privacy people, developers that were working on this project or just had opinions about this project. They organized on something called the Cypherpunks mailing list. And there were about 2,000 of them. They started with 3. By 2008, they had grown to about 2,000. And it was there that a lot of ideas were shared, and it was just like an email thread of all these people talking to each other and presenting ideas.
Okay.
In 2008, on October 31st, a new user posted for the first time a document called Bitcoin, a peer-to-peer transaction system he published the Bitcoin white paper.
The white paper.
The white paper.
Okay.
Which is a document of equal historic significance to the Declaration of Independence. It was,
in your opinion.
Yeah, in my opinion.
Okay.
But I can say that very confidently.
I think as I'm learning more, I would tend to agree with you, but I want to make sure the audience understands that as the opinion of somebody who strongly believes cryptocurrency is going to be the currency of the future, would say that. Mm-hmm. It doesn't mean that if you go and ask, Hillary Clinton, if she thinks that that Satoshi Nakamoto's white paper is equal historical significance as the Declaration of Independence, I don't think she'll agree.
Probably
even though she probably knows it to be so.
Yeah, let me say, all opinions are definitely my own, and I'm definitely far on the side of people that believe in this.
Of course, and, naturally,
I'm all the way in.
Which is why you're here, brother. Which is why you're here. So I unleashed the hound when I said the name, but so it was.
I hope it's at least engaging.
100%.
Yeah,
they're eating it up.
So Satoshi Nakamoto is the alias of the person or group who published this 8-page document, which described a functioning economic policy or economic system using computer code, and an alternative to cash, an alternative to fiat meaning government money. Mm-hmm. Something that had the good attributes of money, which is liquidity, which means it can be spent, mm-hmm. Access, anybody can access it. It's not going to it's being released into the system at a steady rate. Mm-hmm. It's predictable, it's knowable, all the things that make money good, a form of money, a good form of money, are stronger in Bitcoin than they are in the
finite
dollar.
Supply and easily transferable and hard to copy and
immune to human, malfeasance or metal making, just screwing around
and of defined value, not variable in value. Okay.
Yeah. So the value part, the value is subjective. That's what we place on it. But in form, as a technology,
we place it because we make it relative to dollars, right?
Yeah.
Right now we're comparing it to dollars.
Yeah. So all this, just to wrap that part up. So Satoshi Nakamoto, nobody knows who they are, right. Whether it's an individual or a group.
It might be an Asian guy sitting in a rattan chair somewhere, smoking a big long pipe, looking over his valley, glad at his accomplishments, or it could be 21 computer hackers who got together and called themselves Satoshi Nakamoto.
Yep.
Or it could have been one genius who just thought Satoshi Nakamoto was a cool name.
Yeah. So there's core suspects. There's a guy named Dorian Satoshi Nakamoto who was on the mailing list, but who denied involvement.
Okay.
I have some suspicion about that. I think he was probably involved in some way or form.
Okay.
There's a guy
When
named
you say he was on the mailing list, what's that mean?
the Cypherpunks mailing list.
Oh, okay.
So he was.
And his name was Dorian Satoshi Nakamoto?
Yeah.
It's kind of a dead giveaway, isn't it?
It is, but like, you know, there's a lot of lore around this, and I won't begrudge you with all of it.
Okay.
Key guys involved in advancing it early on: Hal Finney, Nick Szabo, Adam Bach is the guy who invented the core technology that Bitcoin is built on. But what Bitcoin basically did is it took all these attempts from different cryptocurrencies and assembled them together in a way which worked. The core, like, you know, I won't get more technical than that, but they basically took apart a bunch of refrigerators and built a rocket ship.
Okay, that makes perfect. That's actually a really good analogy. So, in order for Bitcoin to exist, it needs to be mined, which would be, correct me if I'm wrong, but it would be better thought of as bodies of work solved than an actual tangible thing cut out of the stone, right? So, mining, quote unquote, Bitcoin is really just watching transactions unfold.
So those are the nodes. The nodes are the ones that are watching the transaction.
Okay, so those are the watchers.
Yeah.
So the miners are
receiving, you know, like they're receiving a bundle of transactions which have happened over a period of time.
Okay.
Within the last 10 minutes or so.
Already have happened.
Yeah.
And then they're packaging them together.
Yes.
And
they're
putting a signature on them.
They're trying to solve a very complicated math problem like the process is crazy. You know, like so the machine's power is measured in something called hashes. You know, like the hash rate.
Yep.
So like my machines, for example, like 104 terahash to 104 terahash. What that means is it's making 100, and like when they're solving it, they're not actually solving it. They're just brute force guessing and then seeing if a brute force, like a random guess that they've made, happens to be correct. There's a small number of potential right answers that they can find.
Okay.
And a vast number of wrong answers.
Okay.
And they are brute force trying to make a correct guess, to be the first to find one of the correct answers. Once they find it, then they stand up, they shout, "I did it," and they blast it out to the nodes, and then the nodes check the submission against the rules, and if it's correct, then they add it to the end of the block, and then they move on to the next window.
So it's almost like the computer's got a combination lock in its hand, and it's going 7, 16, 4, pull.
Exactly.
Nope, damn it. 38, 14, 12, pull. Damn it. 14, 62, 8, click. Shit, I did it. And then they look at it to make sure he didn't cut it with bolt cutters or, melt the insides and make it hot. And then they're looking and go, yeah, no, he actually did open it correctly. Sure, perfect. They hook it onto the end of the chain, click it back closed. That's the next transaction in sequence.
Yes, and those, like, each machine that's making these guesses, because it's not like you could yourself make a guess and submit it, but they're like the machines that are doing it. They're called ASICs. That stands for Application Specific Integrated Circuit. The effort that you have to put out to do this, you used to be able to just do this with a USB stick.
Okay.
Back in like 2013, those were like what the first Bitcoin miners, and like miner is a term that the industry has begun to use because like it's a way to understand it.
Sure.
Like gold, it's pulling value from the earth. Like it's creating value from something, and it's earning money coming in. What Satoshi referenced them as is proof of work scanners.
Okay.
Because like that activity of randomly guessing, that's like scanning. They're using proof of work to scan, and find a right answer.
Gotcha.
The machines are guessing over 100 trillion times per second.
Jesus.
And there are millions of machines in the world that are making these guesses.
So then if it used to be done on a USB drive, now it's done in these complex machines. Do the problems to solve get harder as time goes on?
There's a function called the difficulty adjustment.
Okay.
That is in the Bitcoin, technology. It's in the stack. And that's one of the core, that is actually the core innovation that Satoshi came up with when putting the white paper out.
When you say the core innovation, meaning how his differed from everybody else's.
Yeah.
And I'm going to take a guess. Is it the more people are trying to solve the problems, the more he cranks up the difficulty level?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, naturally that would make it incredibly secure when it has a variable functionality like that. That if more people are going after the pot, it automatically has this feature that's intrinsic in it to go, oh, now there's more people trying. Let's make it a little harder for these guys.
Yeah.
Because I read somewhere or I heard somewhere that the rate, or what was it, the rate stays the same at which the problems can be solved. Like you could have a bazillion people going at it, but there's only going to be one new coin. You said it, I think, earlier. Yeah. Every 10 minutes or something.
So to complete the mining process, right? So once you've made that guess, you stand up, you're shouting it, you submit it, everyone accepts it. right now you're rewarded with 6.4 Bitcoin.
Okay.
Of those Bitcoin, 6.25 is new Bitcoin, which is being added to the list of Bitcoin that already exists. There's about 19,400,000 that exists. So you solve the next block. Now there's 19,400,000 and 6.25 Bitcoin.
Gotcha.
The total reward is 6.4. 6.25 of it is new that's being added, and 0.15 is transaction fees. Over time, that relative share of transaction fees to the it'll increase. You'll be like getting a larger proportion of your reward in transaction fees compared to new Bitcoin.
Okay.
And the other thing that happens is every 4 years, the reward for that 10-minute window for that correct answer is reduced by half. So it's like radioactive
halving.
Yeah,
I've heard
halving.
of that. Okay.
Yeah. So like there's a halving event every 4 years.
It's kind of like when a stock splits, right?
Yeah.
It becomes so plentiful and so heavily traded that they say, okay, listen, we're gonna take its value, cut it in half. The people that already have it, we're gonna give them twice as much as what they have now, but we're gonna create that much more for other people, essentially.
Basically, but instead of having a like some authority, it's just what happens around the halving is I, as a miner, I'm mining, and then if I want cash, if I want to spend it right now, I need to sell it. Or even if I could spend it, if I could buy coffee with it, I would be more inclined to hold on to it, until if it's not like if I spent more money to make it, then I'm getting back, based off the cost. I'm making
dollar cost average.
I'm making a cost-based decision.
Yep.
So every 4 years when there's a halving event, like there's a emotional drive among miners and the people that have it, where they're less inclined to sell it and help that new Bitcoin enter the supply. And that reluctance is part of what drives like a price to increase.
Okay.
So the price will increase in general until collectively miners are comfortable selling. More Bitcoin is held by non-miners than miners, but they're like that is a core recurring mechanical economic function that has that does influence the value of the coin, the price of the coin at a given point in time.
Okay, so let me ask you this question. So our government says this stuff is no good, right? They say, no, that's not going to be the way of the future. It's a novelty thing. It's for the hackers of the world, the believers of that community. It's not real. It's their thing. Leave it to them. So if that's the case and our government issues the fiat currency, the dollar bills that we can actually spend and transact with, like, for instance, you can't put a dollar bill into a Pepsi vending machine, or rephrase myself, can't put a Bitcoin into a Pepsi vending machine, right, but you can put a dollar bill. So if the vending machine won't accept the Bitcoin, how do you transfer Bitcoin that you have into a dollar value or into a cash value if it doesn't have a cash value?
So the way to answer that is same thing gives Bitcoin value as gives the dollar value, which is people's belief in it. So when people are like right now, what Bitcoin is doing is it's primarily performing as a stock. It's like a stock, and like a stock that pays dividends. When you're buying a stock, you are buying it based off of your expectation of its future performance. Okay. What do you think? Like, do you think the price is going to go up? Do you think Tesla is going to make a lot of money? Do you think that they're going to start paying dividends? Is it how is the trajectory of the world going to affect the performance of this company? And you are not buying it based off of the money that it has today, but the money that it could have in 10 years, right? Okay. So the future performance of Bitcoin that people are speculating on is adoption, is I will be able to use it at the vending machine. I will be able to use it to buy coffee, to buy a car. When I'm on, like Grubhub or whatever, Seamless or whatever like food delivery app you have, I will be able to select like my credit card, my debit card, PayPal, or my Bitcoin wallet as a way to pay. That's like people are speculating on that being the case over the next 10 to 20 years.
Do you believe that's going to happen?
I do.
Okay, and what drives your belief in that? What has you so confident of that?
So what has me confident that on a fundamental level, it's the technology itself. The fact that the technology does what the dollar does better. It's not affected by inflation. Like the value is going up over time. It is highly volatile. But that is because we're in this speculative period. I believe it because while the dollar is strong, there's a lot of governments around the world where people can't rely on their governments to take care of the money that they have. Like I think Argentina, I saw right now, has 93% interest rates. That's crazy.
That's insane.
Yeah. So like around the world, I think that what we're going to see.
You're talking about interest rates to borrow money.
Yeah.
Like if you want to go get a mortgage, you're going to pay, $800 a month and then another $712 in interest.
It's the like the federal government that's like the federal interest rates for Argentina that are 93%.
I gotcha.
So the like people around the world are going, like right now it's an easy choice, right? If you're in Venezuela, you don't want your government's money. You want Bitcoin. El Salvador, you want Bitcoin. Like El Salvador actually accepts Bitcoin right now. It's like the government of El Salvador has authorized Bitcoin. It was the first in the world to authorize Bitcoin as a way of paying their taxes. It has full government authority, like within that country.
Wow.
So I think that what's going to happen is those countries over time are going to begin adopting.
Not to interrupt, but did you believe they did that out of desperation? Like they were so poor at managing their government and their own fiscal system that they're like, okay, we give up. Let's just use Bitcoin.
I believe they did it out of innovation, not desperation.
Okay.
So like El Salvador's, brief tangent, really cool right now. Like I mean, like it's very controversial what's been happening in the country over the last 5-10 years or so. Mm-hmm. But murder rates have dropped like drastically. It used to be like, I don't know the number off my top of my head, but the president basically issued a state of emergency, cracked down, and has completely turned the state of the country around. It's safe. I've got friends that like are from there who say that they used to not be able to walk down the street with their phone out because it would get robbed, at any point in time.
Yep.
And it's a new country now. So like this forward-thinking president, who a lot of people call him a fascist. A lot of people call him, like a hero. Like there's like that. It's that kind of role. Like He's kind of like a benevolent dictator at the moment. And the fear is like what's going to happen when he's no longer president. Is his power going to be passed on to somebody else that we can trust less? That's that. But he has 90% approval rating in the country. So this rock star is the one that like led the adoption of Bitcoin as a currency for El Salvador.
Okay.
But yeah, I think people are going to make that choice because of their need over time. I think eventually the price is going to stabilize once we hit a certain point. We see more utility when more people are using it to transact.
Okay.
And people are going to want I think that government money needs something to hold it accountable. I think that Bitcoin and U.S. dollar need to coexist alongside.
That's what I was going to ask you. So they need to coexist.
Yeah.
Is what you're saying. So Bitcoin will be the currency that is governed by the people, that is used side by side with government currency, because the government's not going to adopt Bitcoin all the way, and society's not going to adopt, or society's going to reject the dollar somewhat, and there will be this marriage in between the two, you believe?
Yeah, I think that...
Because I think people think that guys like you think that Bitcoin is going to replace the fiat dollar completely. And
in like 100 years, way into the future. But like, we're
you really think that will happen?
It could. Yeah, I don't know about the rules. We have yet to see what a currency like what Bitcoin will do to national currencies.
Right.
We don't know maybe it's going to make it more competitive. Maybe like Bitcoin and maybe the Federal Reserve is going to be held accountable by the activity of Bitcoin. Maybe it's going to be beneficial to them, and we'll be transacting day to day with Bitcoin, and we'll be paying our taxes with government money. So the government money can continue to print and do all this stuff.
I think that's a lot easier of a pill for people to swallow, that this technology will come out there and act as a substantial supplement to the financial system, and it'll be a currency that more people can that people can have more governance over, but that the government's not going to buy into it completely, and there will still be the dollar out there. You mentioned something about the price fluctuation and Bitcoin being like a stock. What affects the price? Like, we know that if somebody comes in and says, oh my God, I got sick off a Hershey's bar, they're getting sued in a class action lawsuit for $38 billion, Hershey's price is going to drop, right? Mm-hmm. What affects whether Bitcoin goes up or down?
Emotion. Like how are people feeling about it?
So like the stock market.
Yeah, it's exactly like the stock market. Actually the thing that captivated me most about cryptocurrencies early on is it's like the stock market without the bullshit.
Okay.
Like, we're not pretending that the performance of this stock is related to the value of the stock.
We're actually calling it what it is.
Yeah. It is like it's it's like a game. Like, people are like, what are crypto, like altcoins. Like, there's Bitcoin, and then like a lot of people call the rest of the currencies altcoins or shit coins, depending on what they're doing. I don't think they're all shit coins, but there are a lot of them.
Okay.
And they all have different functions. They're all doing different things. But
is it safe to say Bitcoin is the most well thought out and the pioneer of them and the best done? I'm not asking you to take sides. I'm asking you strictly from a technological perspective. Would somebody who was a scientist of sorts looking at this, if you gave them all the coins and said which one is fundamentally the most sound, would it be Bitcoin, or is it just that Bitcoin got to the marketplace first and it's like Nike, everybody likes it better?
They have different use cases. Like people like different currencies other than Bitcoin are built to do different things. Like Ethereum is not trying to play this game of being the alternative to government money around the world. It is trying to provide a platform for people to build Web3 products on, like these decentralized applications, this new version of the internet.
No, I don't know.
Yeah,
most of our audience doesn't.
Yeah,
what's Web3?
So Web 1 is like there's a server somewhere. Right? And I log into my computer and I can go see what's on the server.
Yeah.
Web 2 is like Facebook, right? Like I can go and interact. It's called read and write. I can interact with the stuff on the server that's somewhere else. Web 3 is there is no server somewhere else. Like I have it's like Visa getting broken up. Like we're not having the big Visa data centers. We're having Bitcoin mines around the world, nodes around the world. Web 3 is local storage. Like local custody of information. Like we're all participating in this together. It's like a increasing like. What the internet allows us to do is connect with each other more and pretend that we're all in the same room, So like it's basically bringing all the hardware. I'm worried I'm making this more complicated.
Yeah, but it's taking everybody's computers and turning them into one giant data center.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Everybody has it, little bits and pieces all over the place.
Yeah, you're contributing to like your own. You're part of it.
Okay, so, that makes sense.
Yeah. So Web3 is like there's a lot of things that could be done with that, but I don't think that everything, like you don't need blockchain for everything. You don't need Web3 for everything.
So to your point there with the blockchain is on Web3. Is that what it is?
It's they're related.
They're the same idea.
So blockchain is a way to enable Web3. To be decentralized, right? It's a way to like effectively and safely decentralize this.
Okay. So would it be safe to say, just for the audience, for their knowledge, when it comes to something like blockchain, it's a good way to encrypt, right? Essentially.
So, as you understand it, yeah. Like specifically, the word encrypt involves like encryption. What Bitcoin and
validating data, I think more to a point where it's non-fungible, right? Like there can't be other iterations of it. That's what fungible means, right?
Yeah.
So what I'm saying is my birth certificate could be stored on a blockchain, but it wouldn't make sense for people to trade recipes on the blockchain.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
But like my car's title could be stored on the blockchain, but it wouldn't make sense to have owner's manual stored on the blockchain.
Right. Another thing I think would
like one-off things that are important.
Or things that like a lot of people are contributing to, and you want to validate, like Wikipedia would make sense as like a blockchain project.
Okay.
Doesn't need to be, but
other people have to agree that the information is valid before we just call it kosher.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like we could, like if we wanted to, because like the way Wikipedia works is you have, like editors, like anybody can edit it. So if instead you wanted to create like a special class of, like if there was like a test to become an editor, and you wanted like 5 editors to like authorize, like if one editor wanted to make a change and 5 other editors needed to authorize it, then that would be something that you could do over blockchain.
Okay, that makes sense. So the price of Bitcoin is affected by emotion. Okay, but what I want to know is if I have 3.7 Bitcoin, where are they? Who has custody of my Bitcoin? Is it in? I mean, there's a Bitcoin wallet. I guess explain what is a Bitcoin or a cryptocurrency wallet? Are the transactions actually stored on there to where if that gets destroyed, those transactions never happen and that blockchain is fucked up? Or is it just an idea? Is it server space? That still confuses me.
Yeah, I'll say a couple of things there, and I'll circle back to your question earlier about the about what gives it value or drives the ups and downs. When people are speculating on Bitcoin right now, they're speculating on that adoption. If Bitcoin is used as, like if what I suggested, if Bitcoin is usable everywhere you would use $1, if you would have that choice everywhere, then the value of a Bitcoin would be about $220,000. That's because there's about 5 trillion circulating currencies in the world, like banknotes, like dollars, euros, yen, everything. Like there's about 5 trillion of those in the world that are just floating around doing things. And 21 million possible Bitcoin ever. So, if 5 trillion, if the activities of $5 trillion are also equally able to be done by 21 million Bitcoin, then the value of each Bitcoin is about $220,000, 51.
Which is just a math equation.
Yeah, just math.
Okay.
5 trillion by 21 million.
Gotcha.
So people are speculating on that number. That is like they're speculating on
it leveling out.
Yeah, they're speculating on it leveling out, and then as inflation happens, it will continue to increase with inflation. So it's going to be volatile until it hits that. And even like when it hits that, it might go up further, and it might go back down because they're still speculating on it. But when it defaults, when people like learn enough about it and have enough of it, and it's widespread enough, like it's going to rest at about that number. It's always going to feel like $220,000.
Okay.
And then what's going to happen is it'll just hold steady with inflation for a while, and then we get into speculation about like what's its role. Is it going to replace gold, and is it going to be like everything? Which I don't like to go that far.
Well, we could speculate forever about it.
Yeah. So the what's a wallet? What is a Bitcoin? Where is it? Bitcoin, obviously it doesn't exist physically.
Okay.
Right? There's no one place that a Bitcoin is. It's like an agreement.
So it's not like you burn your Bitcoin onto a USB stick and put it on your keychain and carry it around with you.
Let's say like right now I'll volunteer, like I owe you $1.
Okay.
Right? That's a Bitcoin. Not to be esoteric, that acknowledgement between you and me that I have a debt to you, or that this exists, this concept of a debt exists. That's what it's like a concept that's shared among the computers.
Okay.
So all it is it's an entry on the list that says you have this much. There's no reserve. There's no shiny little gold things on the internet somewhere. It's just a list that says that you have 21 Bitcoin, and if you want to send 2 Bitcoin to somebody else, you can.
Okay.
What'll happen then is you subtract 2 from your 21, and now you have 19. And everyone the entire blockchain knows that this wallet has 19 Bitcoin left.
So it's almost like online bank accounts.
Yeah.
Like I can go on my key bank account and transfer this much money to your bank account. You receive that amount. The bank says, yeah, that's a valid transaction. It's very much the same.
It really
is. Just so much more secure. Mm-hmm. It's viewed by everybody all at once. So nefarious actors cannot exist because other people would immediately go, that it doesn't match my list. It doesn't match their list. It doesn't match anybody's list. Get that shit out of here.
It's impossible to steal it without the passwords. The government can't stop it. They can't control it. It's independent of everything.
And there's 2 passwords, right? Or something. I heard there's like one local and one.
Yeah. Sure. So there's a public and private key.
There we go. Public and private key.
Yeah. That's for that most of that happens automatically.
Okay.
When you have a wallet. So a wallet, you can buy them. You can download an app that has a wallet. You can buy a USB stick that has a wallet on it. That's called a hardware wallet. And they are what it is. Like a wallet is it's where you store your Bitcoin, but really where it's just it's the keys that give you permission to move around. The identity.
Okay.
So it's just a concept. It's a software concept. And what you're doing with the hardware wallet is it's not physically, your Bitcoin's not physically on the USB stick.
Okay.
But what is on the USB stick is your passwords, the passwords that you have. And it gets complicated with, 1 signature, 2 signatures, 3 multi-sig wallets, multi-signature wallets. But basically it's just a wallet is where you can interact with it from, and where the keys that are being broadcasted to the network go from.
Okay, that makes sense. Now let me ask you this question: What about this tale that we've all heard of this guy that bought a pizza and paid for it in 50 Bitcoin, and then there's some computer tower in a dump somewhere in the UK with a couple $1 million worth of Bitcoin on it? Yeah.
So 2 different stories. So the first transaction that happened on the Bitcoin network was, some guys were just joking around, I think this is so awesome because, it really highlights how Bitcoin is, there's a lot of really good ideas that people have that just never make it past the drawing board.
Yep.
Water powered cars, there's a lot of things that could be that just don't get the momentum to become that.
Or somebody steps in and makes it that way.
Yeah. And Bitcoin is one of the those ideas that just shouldn't have worked. It's ridiculous. Magic internet money controlled by nobody. The government's not involved in it in any sort of way. Unpackaging us from the inbuilt concepts from when we're in grade school buying milk. Having us think about these things for the first time. What happened in 2011? I think it was 2010 or 2011. Was one of the early guys in Bitcoin posted that he had. He'd been mining, he'd been contributing, and he posted that he would pay 10,000 Bitcoin for somebody to send him a pizza. So almost just as a joke,
As a joke, somebody sent him a pizza.
as a joke, so somebody else sent him a pizza, and
But the guy stayed true to his word and sent him the 10,000 Bitcoin.
I mean, which was worthless at the time,
Right,
You know,
it
like
meant
there was,
nothing.
yeah, like it was literally less than an arcade token. You couldn't even put it in and play like Mortal Kombat with it. But the value that like I think peaked at like $22 million was the peak value of that transaction.
Of all the times you wish you left your dusty PC tower sitting in the closet, huh?
Yeah. So like, and then like there's a guy in I think the UK who a lot of people have like lost those wallets or lost access. You know, so one of the things that's really important in Bitcoin is custody and like and responsibility.
Okay.
If you lose your seed phrase, then you completely lose access, and everyone for all time loses access to the Bitcoin that are in your wallet.
So that's ultimately secure then. It's
Yeah.
not like you can click the forgot password link. It's like if you forget that motherfucker, it's over.
It's
It's
gone.
done. No, other people can't even get it. Can the miners remine it?
No.
It's done.
Gone forever.
It existed in that moment in time on that transaction record, and that was it.
Yeah, and like it will still always be recognized. It's almost like it's been like mummified or
Like
something
somebody
like
buried a couple million cash somewhere in the ground somewhere and forgot where they buried it.
or lit it on fire. Like either one is like it's like forgetting about it is better analogy, but like
Okay.
it's basically just gone. Like so like that 20 like let's say it was like a million Bitcoin in a wallet that was forgotten.
Yeah.
The functional maximum supply is no longer 21 million. It's now 20, and like so it's just it's irrecoverable. So it is a really cool story. That guy in the UK, he had I think I don't remember how many Bitcoin. I think it peaked in value at like $650 million of Bitcoin, and he had like a hardware wallet which had his seed phrase, and like his girlfriend threw it away or something like that.
No.
And so he embarked. I remember he looked so sad in like the videos, like when he was at one point just going to the dump by himself and like looking through it. He raised money, and I think he like actually bought the dump and was going through it and like excavating like areas where they thought it were. Maybe he'll find it one day. I think they're still looking.
You
for
never
it.
know.
Yeah,
I mean,
I think I highly doubt he's going to recover it. But
even if he does, what happens if he finally finds it? It's like water soaked and the chips don't work anymore. That's quite
probably,
possible too, right?
Highly, it's like outside in a dump somewhere.
I think it's more like his that need to be chasing something that he knows could give him the light at the end of the tunnel, I guess.
I mean, find another $650 million idea, I guess, is what I would say.
Yeah.
Your time will be better spent.
Poor bastard.
Yeah.
So I wanted to ask you this question because I've been learning a lot about AI, right? And it's becoming a force to be reckoned with. And it's something that we need to acknowledge because it's here, it's getting better, and it's going to play a major part of our lives in the near future, much like the internet, in its adoption curve. How does AI affect the mining of Bitcoin? I mean, could AI figure it out because it's so smart and just be like, okay, we're going to mine Bitcoin at a rate of 1 coin a second?
Definitely not. No.
Okay. And how are you so sure? I'm not questioning it. I just want to know.
So the computational power that is required for, so the like globally, right? Like the big computers that are mining Bitcoin are putting more energy towards that. There's more computing power that's being put to that. Like if you're measuring it in form of energy, they use more energy than like the entire country of Argentina to bring up.
Not to interrupt the thought, but that's an issue too, isn't it? Energy consumption.
Yeah.
I mean, there's people that are like really worried about the energy consumption and its effect on the environment.
Yeah, I mean, there's nothing inherently problematic with consuming energy, right? It's where are you drawing the energy from?
Okay.
And there's something really cool. Like I'm like, so my company, like
That's a great point, man. It's not a problem of consumption of energy. It's what's being used to create said energy.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah. Like both for my own, like I don't want to feel like I'm contributing negatively to the world around me. So like, I don't want to just be pumping heat into the air. I don't want to be like, like spinning up old coal mines to like mine Bitcoin. Those things seem unethical. Like they seem like they seem damaging. And also like, I think Bitcoin could do a lot of good, and I don't want it to be sullied by like, that kind of association.
Right.
And a lot of Bitcoin people too, a lot of Bitcoin miners, not even because of necessarily they have principles about like the environment. They just don't want people to associate like the good that they believe in, the passionate good that they believe, the good that they passionately believe in.
Right.
They don't want to be associated with like this climate thing. So they're like over 57% of Bitcoin miners are using like exclusively renewable resources. Like
Okay, like solar panels,
solar, hydro,
hydroelectric.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like my company, we use 92% hydro, 8% nuclear.
When you say hydro and nuclear, you're talking about the power source.
Yes.
Okay. So,
Yeah.
and how is that determined? How do you dictate what power you're using, or is it where you're located?
You can't, both actually. You know,
Okay.
like in New York State, you can actually choose who you're buying your power from.
Okay.
The way that it actually works, and you can do this in your home too. You can shop online for other energy rates. You'll by default be paying National Grid, but you can choose to pay anybody else that you want.
Okay.
Sometimes you can get cheaper rates. Sometimes you can choose to buy, you know, like renewables, and you'll feel better about it. What all those companies are doing, what all those like companies that are making electricity are doing, is they're just contributing electrons to the grid. So once they enter the grid, it's actually like, you don't know, like you're using the grid's energy. Like,
Right.
It's not actually as directly connected to the power plant. So like five power plants, you know, like solar, coal, wind, you know, like whatever, they're all contributing to the grid, and you're just pulling from that grid, and then they all get mixed up together. You know?
Okay,
And,
makes
but
sense.
you can choose. You have the right to choose who
Who
you're
you're contributing your money
yeah,
to?
who you're buying it from. So we're not actually doing that because the grid that we're on, it's in an area of New York called a municipal power entity.
Okay.
And they get their power from the Niagara Falls project and from a nuclear power plant, you know, like as like for supplements.
Okay. And the power at Niagara Falls project obviously being created by the current of the water.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, there's a dam.
That's quite responsible of it. You know, I don't think most people know they can choose where they get the energy from. I think everybody thinks that you call up National Grid, you get your, we used to call it NIMO. God, I'm dating myself.
Yeah.
But you call up National Grid, you say, hey, send me my power, turn on my power, and that is what it is.
Yeah, it's New York Power to Choose in New York, if anybody's curious. You know,
Okay.
just to search that, you can pick a tool and you can
New
switch over
York
your
Power
rate.
to choose.
Yeah, and like at scale, I can even start to negotiate with power companies directly for like an amount of power at a certain rate. But I learned about this for the first time when I was in college, because they would, like, those companies that, like, those supplemental energy companies would send people to like the student neighborhoods and like knock on the door, and I really didn't understand.
Have you chosen your energy supplier?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
I was like, I didn't understand what they were talking about. I didn't want to talk to them. I didn't
Right.
want to be rude to them.
They're like vacuum cleaner salesmen, though. And they were like, knock, knock, knock. How you doing? Hello, sir. Did you know that your energy? Why don't you go get a copy of your power bill real quick? I can show you who your energy supplier is. Did you know you could choose your energy supplier? And
It
you're
was there was always some like scruffy kid, not scruffy, but like just, you know, like the nervous guy.
a snake oil salesman,
Like
man.
it was a nervous kid who like I respected for walking around
Right.
and like
having
you know,
the gusto to knock on your door.
yeah, and I
Right.
was like I want it and entertain you, but I'm not good. Like, you're not effectively communicating to me what this is doing, or what.
Right.
Like, I don't just want to give you money, but like
Right.
you know. So eventually I looked it up and like learned about that. But it's yeah.
And there was value in what they were selling.
There was, yeah.
They just weren't very good at selling it.
Yeah, and like it like even it didn't even make sense to me as a student to like make that choice,
Right.
because I'm there for 12 months.
Right,
you know?
right.
It's not like a
Long-term ramification or
yeah,
something.
exactly. But you know, like at your home, it probably makes more sense, or for your business, it makes more sense.
Yeah, when you're breaking it down and you're watching the pennies, and you know the even the smallest of fluctuations can affect you $100 this way or $100 that way. I think it makes sense. Also, there's that subset of people that just hate National Grid.
Yeah.
They're just like, I'll pay more to buy it from somebody else. You know what I mean?
Yeah. National Grid, like, they do a lot of stuff that's innovative. They can be a lot to deal with on a customer level.
They can.
But your question about my confidence that AI, so like crazy amount of computational power that is going towards mining Bitcoin. And the process is not something, it's not something you can get better at. It's just something you can do more. You know, like, you can't get better at making the guesses. You can just do more guesses.
Okay.
It's built on a hashing function. So this like the technology that is it's called hashing, right? So like what hashing is you take a string of text and you put it into a box, and you like run a hashing function on it. So
Okay.
like think about it like algebra. Like, you know, you multiply it by a.
Okay.
So like, you know, you like like if I were to put the phrase "the dog ran up the hill," and I do a hashing function, I would get like a string of random gibberish, like phi, like A, Z, B, D, like R, Q, Q, like 3, 2, 1. Except sorry, it's all numbers. You know, like 0, 0, 1.
Right.
You know, and like the output is actually it's hexadecimal. I think it's hexadecimal. But the output, like, so like let's say I got A, B, 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 Y, right, for the output of, and it's always the same size. Like, the length of the string is the same. So no matter how much text I put in, I will get the same size output. And like it has no relationship to anything that's close to it. So the dog ran up the hill would say AEBBY. The dogs ran up the hill, one letter different. What could be like ZQRLMN, and there's no discernible, like it's like there's no
patterns,
there's
no traceable connectivity.
It's using some big like elliptical math, which I don't even really understand very well, but like the
probably by design.
Yeah, it's, and like the government actually, like it's called SHA-256 is the hashing function.
SHA who?
SHA-256. SHA.
Sounds like the next droid robot in Star Wars. R2D2 SHA-256. Get over here.
It's my favorite hashing function, but it's like so, and like there's also like SHA-512. 256 is for like 256 bits in a computer.
Yeah,
or like in a byte. I was going to say something there too. The government used to classify those. So like back to the cypherpunks. Like one of the things that they objected to was they wanted online payments, and they also were the academics that were developed these hashing functions that the government classified as munitions. So like munitions. So like they viewed that function the same way that they view like a missile. And they were they were just
what sense does that even make?
It's because of like they were using it for military encryption, and they didn't want to like release it into the wild, so like it was illegal to use this computer software unless you were like in the military.
Okay.
And they were resistant to that. That was one of the things that they wanted. Like they were kind of advocates. They were kind of anarchists. They were like they were pushing for a lot of things.
Okay.
And they were like, and one of the things that they were trying to do is they were trying to, get access to these hashing functions that the government put together because they were necessary for cryptography, for effective cryptography, for effective online payments.
Gotcha.
And
Okay. So we're gonna wrap it up. Okay. There was so much information here. I don't want to get people too overwhelmed. I think we hit on the core of what cryptocurrency is. I didn't want to get too heavy into Bitcoin over one coin or the other, or really get into that too much, because I think before you understand those things, you must understand the core functionality of it. Okay. We had a list of things that we wanted to get through. So I want to reiterate that because it was important that we touched on these things. Now I'm looking at this list, and I want you to look at the list too, Phil. And I'm looking here. Ruben, why don't you look up here too? We wanted to talk about, where did it come from? How is it introduced? What is mining? What is a wallet? How many Bitcoin exist? What is the difference between the coins? Who has custody? I think we got through all this stuff. One thing that's on there that we haven't really touched on that I do want to kind of get to briefly before we exit out of here. Recently, there was kind of a tragedy, I guess you would say, and a major, major loss of invested value of a lot of people with this Sam Bankman-Fried and FTX.
Yeah.
Was I don't, should we conflate Bitcoin, cryptocurrency, and FTX? FTX was, from what I understand, a trading platform, or it was like
an exchange. Yeah,
it was like a Wall Street of Bitcoin, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so they were like an exchange, and you could also store your Bitcoin with them. The role that they filled was as a custodian. And again, so one of the primary benefits that Bitcoin has is you don't need to store it at a bank. You don't need to trust it to a bank that can lose it. You don't, like, you can keep it yourself and you're gun safe and use it whenever you want. And a lot of exchanges, like, nobody who buys Bitcoin should keep their coin on an exchange. Everybody who is buying it should, or has any, if they have it on an exchange, like if they have it on Coinbase, if they have it on Binance, if they had it on FTX, wherever they have it, they should get a good wallet, like a self-custody wallet, like Moon, MUUN is one I use.
Okay.
And move it there.
So why do these exchanges exist if they're no good?
Because it's hard. It's really fucking hard to buy Bitcoin peer to peer. Like if I wanted to go out and buy 20 Bitcoin, or if I wanted to sell a third of a Bitcoin, like where would I go? They're good for making those exchanges, but you treat it like the marketplace. You don't treat it like the bank, because what they do is they're not just like the banks are. They're not just sitting on your money. You don't have like a bank account. You don't have like a vault with a bunch of dollars in it. The bank's investing your money.
So what you're saying is keep your money in your wallet. When it comes time to make an exchange, put it on the exchange, get the transaction done, get your shit back out.
Exactly.
Don't just let it sit there and hover and say, okay, well, so then a real life, well, that's a stupid thing to say. A more commonplace example of this would be, don't leave 30 grand in your bank account. Leave it in your gun safe. Yeah. When it comes time to pay your NIMO bill, put $337.12 in your bank account. click your Pay My NYMO auto pay button, pay it, and then take your money, put it back in your gun safe.
That's exactly what I'm suggesting.
Because perfect example, if I had $30 million in Silicon Valley Bank, and I was making my National Grid, my lease payments, my wife's car payment, my mortgage payment, and then just letting my $30 million sit in Silicon Valley Bank, I'd be fucking broke right now.
Yeah.
But if I had $30 million sitting in a safe, and then, I put 10 grand a month into my Silicon Valley Bank account, paid my bills, and then left the rest of it sitting in the safe, I would still have my 30 grand today.
Exactly.
So that makes sense.
What happened with FTX was sort of like twofold. Like, one, there was something that happened just like like Silicon Valley Bank that wasn't necessarily their fault, which was there was a run on the banks, right?
I mean, ultimately, Sam Bankman-Fried's a piece of shit.
Oh yeah,
right?
Fucking monster.
Okay.
Like absolute psycho. So there's two things that happened, and both are important to understand. One is Sam Bankman-Fried was scamming everybody.
Yeah.
And
I mean, he was taking the money that was coming into his FTX exchange,
buying houses,
moving it over into his sister company, who was a quote research firm, and then buying houses for his group of let's fuck each other and do Adderall all night polygamist camp to fucking.
It was the craziest story.
It was almost unbelievable.
It was nuts.
But then when it was validated by him, and I heard actual interviews and like his voice actually validating this dude took a bunch of billions of dollars from a bunch of celebrities, went and played with it, stayed high on Adderall for days at a time, banged his girl, his buddy's girl, other random girls in a house in Cancun, and then eventually got arrested.
Yeah, so he is Bernie Madoff.
Not
right?
a bad existence, to be honest with you.
He had a good run, but he's Bernie Madoff. He's taking people's money and and what
under the guise of I'm going to go make you more money with this hard-earned money.
Yeah, which is in my opinion, it's a little short-sighted of people, to think oh man, I want to put my Bitcoin.
I have no sympathy for your Tom Brady's and your fucking whoever else celebrity endorsed this asshole.
Well, those guys can go fuck themselves just taking the bill. But even so, without being critical, because I've got a lot of friends that were, in FTX or Celsius or Voyager or Block, there were a bunch of them went down last year.
Yeah.
And they weren't all scamming people, but what they were doing was they were custodying people's current coins and then investing them like a bank does.
Right.
And, if most banks, I think all banks, if all banks had 10% of the people, or 10%, people, 10% of the people try and withdraw all their money from it, they could fail, they could collapse. They're just relying on people not doing that. It's called a run on the banks.
Banks.
So when people are getting concerned, then shit, I got to get it out, put it on a wallet somewhere, move it somewhere else.
You know what's incredibly sad to me, brother, is that most people don't understand that's how a bank works. They think that right now, over at M&T Bank on West Genesee Street, there's a vault full of $30 million cash, and it's all the deposits of all the people at the bank, and it just sits there and they keep it safe. And then when it comes time to make a withdrawal, they take it out. And if the bank gets robbed, somebody robs the vault. And if the vault gets robbed, the FDIC comes in and puts the money back in there.
Something you have experience with, right?
I do, firsthand, matter of fact. Although I was smart enough to know that if I only robbed 2 tellers, it was a state crime and not a federal one. But that came from some quick Google research that I think is actually accurate, but who knows. But the long and the short of it is what people largely don't understand is that when they put their money into the bank then takes that money and says, okay, thank you, we appreciate that. All right, as they roll their dice, which stock looks good today, or which mortgage-backed security looks good today, or which somewhat risk-averse investment can we make with these other people's money so we can get paid for playing with their money.
I love this. A Bitcoin miner and a bank robber explain the financial system.
That's great. Yeah. World economics broken down by a felon bank robber and a Bitcoin miner. But you know what, man? That's the beauty of our show, Phil. And I'm glad that you said that, because in reality, what are we, right? We're a guy who is an entrepreneur who discovered at the early onset this technology that he believed very much in and adopted it early. And by doing so, created a business around it, and now does a body of work that is of benefit to society. It also provides you an income, and it also helps to further this technology that really truly can make the world a better place.
As you can hear, I love talking about it.
100%,
it's like I can go on and on and on. So I love being like having.
That's what happens when you believe in something.
Like being able to explain it to people and bring people into it and help them get their feet wet and be protected from companies like that. Like that's like, you know, it really gets me going. So yeah, it rocks. It rocks. Oh yeah, last note. So FTX, right? So SBF is robbing people, and
Sam Bankman-Fried, for those of you who don't know who SBF is.
Sorry about that. Yeah,
okay. Whose mother is what, a Harvard professor or something?
Like both of them are like like I think
it's a dynasty fan. Like dad is at Purdue as a professor, mom's at Purdue. They're both, and again, I'm paraphrasing here, guys, but both of the mom and dad are very high up in the academia establishment. They are also major. I think they're even like they're ambassadors or somehow presidents or vice presidents of some sort of democratic political movement. I think
they were huge donors to the.
Yeah, bottom line is Sam Bankman-Fried took a bunch of celebrities' money, said he was putting it on his FTX exchange, ended up donating, what was it, like $30 or $40 billion or something like that.
I think it was
million.
I think it was like 500 million.
$500 million bucks or something to the Democratic National Committee or the Democratic or the campaign of Joe Biden or something. Yeah. It was just a major political donation to the left. Not that, you know, right or left matters, but it's the fact of this person was supposed to be an evangelist for cryptocurrency and, you know, and a hero of the people who was trying to further this cryptocurrency technology and create this exchange that was supposed to be what he touted it as. It was where the average Joe could trade cryptocurrency and be safe and do it and understand and not have to do it in large volumes and so on and so forth. He was acting like he was fucking Robin Hood, taking from the rich and giving to the poor. Yeah. When exactly what he was doing is he was taking from the rich and giving to the Democrats and in large
taking from the poor a lot.
Yeah, and taking from the poor, exactly.
Like the average person who's invested in crypto has about $25,000. You know, like they're not like average people are trading because, you know, like one of the reasons I like trading crypto more than stock when I was trading. I'm not trading anymore.
Okay.
Is because like it moves so much faster and it was 24/7. You know, like you could I would wake up within the first 60 seconds of wakefulness every day. I was checking like, you know, based off of my metrics, what do I buy? What do I sell? What do I move around? But I would say to anybody who's listening is do not buy like Bitcoin and keep it at an exchange, and do not sacrifice your security for the 6% or whatever, whatever it is that the exchanges will offer to let you custody them for them, because they're acting like banks, but they are not regulated like banks.
Right.
They are not.
They're not regulated at all, correct?
There's some early regulations that are coming out. In New York State is pioneering legislation in this right now. There's something called the
Imagine that.
Yeah, there's something called the BIT license, which is you know, which like any, like if you live in New York State, any exchange that you can buy from, you can probably trust to an extent. Like they are good actors and they're at least not trying to scam people.
Okay.
But like, and because of our proximity to Wall Street and all that stuff and the across the state legislation, but
right. And the SEC is right there.
Yeah. So like because of the room for people to do bad things and nobody knows about it, it's untraceable, irrecoverable, and unstoppable. Like, don't trust your custody of your assets to somebody else. And then, like, if you're trying to make more money with it, just wait. You know, like,
right.
like why sacrifice? Like, introduce the risk of losing 100% of it for 6% gains this year. When if you wait 3 years, like, you know, most people, like experts think that like we're going to see Bitcoin over $100,000 by 2026.
So 500-600% increase.
Yeah, like just hold tight, keep it safe.
By 2026.
Yeah,
experts are saying that.
Yeah,
who are the experts?
Me. And others. Like it's a common like opinion within like the Bitcoin community, because that.
And what drives that? What drives that belief that it's going to 5 or 6x in the next 3 years?
The halving cycle.
Okay.
Yeah. So
is that going to happen every halving cycle?
So every halving cycle we see a pattern of there's a price that it comes in at, and it will spike up within the first half of the first halving cycle. It'll hit a new all-time high, which is 4 to 15 times higher than the previous all-time high.
Damn.
Yeah. So it, like, you know, in 2012 or like the first halving cycle, it spiked to like I want to say like $1,000.
Okay.
From like it spiked from 0 to 9, like to 17 in the first halving cycle. Like it was trading at zero, like fractions of a cent, spiked up to 17, crashed back
$17.
down. $17.
Okay.
Yeah, crashed back down to like a buck or two, and then middled back out. So it was trading at and that was over a 4-year period. So over a 4-year period, you saw it go up, spike, crash back down, come back up, and middle out at about like $8.
Okay.
And then the next halving cycle, it comes in at $8, and it spikes up over $1,000. It crashes back down to about like a couple hundred, middles back out, comes in at like mid hundreds.
Wow.
And then in 2016, it comes in mid hundreds, spikes up $17,000, crashes back down to like the bottom was 3, middled back out and hung out around like $10,000, for the next 2 years before the next halving event.
Wow.
Then the halving occurs, and we see it spike back up from, it's middle out at like 10,000, goes all the way up to 67, crashes back down. We saw a bottom around 14. And now we're in the middling out period. It'll, based off of that activity, it's going to hang tight and going to be wobbling between $30,000 and $40,000 over the next 3 years.
And where is it right now?
30, low 30.
So it's doing exactly what it's supposed to do.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's let me, standard disclaimer. None of this is financial advice.
Right,
This is just what the charts say. This is what I believe. This is what I'm doing. There are people that think Bitcoin's going to go to $1 million this year. I try not to make decisions based off of based off of emotion, or based off of I don't want to need it to increase in value to be making money off of it.
Gotcha.
Which is one of the reasons that I'm mining, because you're just making more Bitcoin mining than you are dollar cost averaging. And I don't need to speculate. I am producing the other thing that other people are speculating on. So I know you wanted to wrap up. It was just
No. It was more just I didn't want to. I never like to drag out an episode too long to where it seems like we're trying to make something out of nothing. But I also want to make sure I covered everything, and everything that we went over in the last 10, 15 minutes is all very good information, man. There's no time limit. It's just more of trying to make sure that we don't wear you out to where it's not fun to talk about it. The same thing with the audience. We want to give them good information, but that last little bit was absolutely, I think, pertinent information, some of the best in the episode. Now, before we do wrap it up, is there anything that you would want these guys to know about Bitcoin, about cryptocurrency in general, about any of its roots or where it's going that you believe is pertinent information that they should have that we've missed? Number one. Number two, and I believe more importantly, on Man of the Free, our tagline is freedom of mind, freedom of money, freedom of media. What is the number one pile of bullshit that exists in the media right now as it pertains to cryptocurrency? When you catch a news clip and you hear, what's the one thing that pisses you off the most that you need to make sure that they understand is bullshit?
Yeah. The first one, I think we covered a lot that I would, a lot of the things I like to say, I said. Okay. I would just reiterate, custody your coins. That's really actually very important. Custody your coins. Don't sacrifice.
Fuck the exchanges.
Yeah, fuck the exchanges. Use them for what they're meant to be used for, but don't trust people more than you have to.
Okay.
And do your best to take care of yourself. Engrave your seed phrase in steel and put that in a safe deposit
or
box.
Tattoo it on the bottom of your foot or something like that.
Yeah,
okay.
Really take care of it. That's important. Both for
you don't want to be like the pizza guy digging through the landfill in the UK.
Yeah, I don't want to be crying about that. That's such a dude. Watch a video with him. He just he looks so broken in spirit. But the and then the other the pile of bullshit is I would say halfway between people discussing it and its criminality, the aspects of it. It started my first Bitcoin transaction. I bought an ounce of weed on the Silk Road.
Yeah, they want you to believe it's money that's only used on the Silk Road, and it's dirty scumbag drug money.
Yeah, no, it's just money. That was the first place that it had to use cash.
Well, it made sense. That was
the most.
That's what I was going to say. Is that and back when I would use steroids frequently, there was the places that I would get them from would tell you, hey man, if you just pay us by Bitcoin, we'll get it to your house in 3 days. Pay us by a MoneyGram, it takes 3 weeks.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh shit, I'll just use this Bitcoin. And then the process of the wallet and getting it in the wallet and trying to acquire it and all that stuff, it was very complex. I think that it's a lot easier now, or it's at least they've facilitated that process a lot quicker.
It's a lot easier now.
But I couldn't figure it the fuck out back then. I didn't have the patience for it. So,
yeah.
but what it was a way to transfer an asset value immediately between two parties where both parties recognize the value. And at that moment, that's when I became a believer. I didn't start I've never been an evangelist for it. I don't know enough about it. I've learned a lot more today, but I still don't believe that I know enough about it or am well read enough on it to educate others. That's why you're here, right? But I do recognize that this is something that I probably want to have and to hold. This is something that as I start to get a little bit more uncomfortable with my government's financial system and the fiat dollar and world trade in general and mortgage-backed securities and remembering 2008 and just realizing that there's just a bunch of old hairy dudes with a lot of bad moral guidance that are in charge of my financial system, the more and more I realize that as long as everybody accepts this, we could truly have our own money that's not controlled by the government. And I can say, hey, man, I'll take the rest of that Life water bottle. I'll give you 0.2 of a Bitcoin. And I can go over here and say, I'll buy that classic hot rod. I'll give you 1.5 Bitcoin. And as long as the parties are willing to accept it, it's more about like the adoption of it, right? The more people that are willing to accept this thing as an asset that has value, the more free we're going to be, and honestly, the more stable we're going to be as a society.
I think good tech wins out, and it's just a better tech for currency than anything that we have right now. And I think that it is important. Like I said, I do think that we're going to have both coexisting for a very long time.
Me too.
And I think that, but I think that what Bitcoin could do to national currencies is really important. And I think it's important that they have something that makes them need to be competitively accountable.
I agree.
With whether so they're not just printing
grossly irresponsible and just going like there's a comparison measure now.
I saw like an idea being floated about like responding to national debt which was suggesting that they print a platinum coin worth $1 trillion and just give that out. And like what that would do to our money is like, it's insane. It was insane to see that in like Business Week. Like I was like, what, like who's the, it made me lose some confidence a lot in the people that are making these kind of decisions because like, the further that you go down the Bitcoin rabbit hole, the more reasons you will have to doubt the good sense of the people that are running the financial system.
Yeah.
They seem to really overestimate their power, not like, like maliciously, but like they think like they don't seem to realize that there are checks and that there will be like a market reaction to their activities in a really negative way.
That they can just continue to print money and solve the problems by just making a little more money and making a little more money. And eventually it's like, if you just continue to print more money, at some point the shit just all comes tumbling down because there's nothing to hold the value accountable. It's a scary thought, man. It really is.
The other thing that really, irks me is when people are talking about the energy consumption in a really negative way, like, because like, again, like it's not inherently unethical. And Bitcoin miners really care about, like, it frustrates me when I get, like, when people are talking about it like it's some criminal, horrible thing for the environment, which is, like, negating all the work and the slower growth that I put myself through so that I can grow responsibly.
Right.
It's like, and most of us are doing that. Most of us are at least aware that that, like, whether we care about it or not, like, the public does, and the public is going to come up with rules for it. So we can't, like, if we want to be future-proofed, we need to be making plans right now and establishing it. Like tens of millions of dollars will go into a Bitcoin mine, like a big Bitcoin mine. Like it costs about like 30 or 40 to get one of the huge ones up. And if they're planning on just like running it off of oil or coal or natural gas, and they're introducing huge risk for themselves because all this money that they put into this system, like they can't, like they're going to lose it if like the federal government mirrors New York State's Bitcoin mining ban.
Right.
And which I think that we're going to see more of that like that. So I would love to see more encouragement. I think Bitcoin and Bitcoin mining could actually play a really important role in stabilizing energy grids and advancing energy grids. And like energy is one of the things I like talking the most about. I'm really interested in grid development, in gravity batteries, and like the ways that like, we can advance these, like our energy system, because over time we're just going to be using more and more and more and more energy.
Right.
And Bitcoin mining can provide a stable load, so as long as we're engaging responsibly, as long as we're making the right choices, and as long as we're not being penalized, like, Biden floated like a 30% tax on top. So like Bitcoin is taxed when you mine it and when you sell it. So like it's taxed as revenue, like as income, like when you're mining it.
Isn't it funny that they don't recognize it as a store of value or as an asset, but they tax it accordingly?
Yeah, dude, like, and capital gains. So I have to pay income tax and capital gains on the Bitcoin that I'm mining.
But you can't spend it with the government. They won't accept it for your taxes.
I can't pay it. No, I can't. And
they have to have a function of controlling it, man. That's the bottom line. Is it doesn't agree with their way to establish and maintain the power structure, so they have to just cast it out. It's too high of energy consumption. It's too volatile. It's only used for drugs on the Silk Road. It's by the way, I'm sorry, you're transacting it. Yeah, give us 8 to 12% of it.
I don't think that the Fed yet is responding to it like a threat. I think that we have a lot of people in government that really don't understand it and are making rules based off of their lack of understanding for it.
Right.
And
they just know it's transacting, so they're going to get their piece.
And like, I do think that like it's going to be unpopular, right? If like a lot of people are like, it's about like 30% of Americans right now have bought or sold crypto at some point, and I think it's about 10% that have like reasonable holdings in it. If the government is taking legislative action against it, then that's going to be unpopular amongst everybody that is holding it. And as that number continues to increase, it will become more unpopular. So I think that we're going to see adoption to the point where if the government gets wise to like how this like shakes their control a little bit, it'll be like the driver of like, I won't get reelected if I fuck with my guy's money.
Right.
Like, this is like, don't like, that's the one thing we don't want you to do is just,
they don't seem to have ever worried about that before.
Yeah, true. But yeah, those are sort of my thoughts.
Awesome, brother. Well, listen, Phil, I truly appreciate you being here. I mean, this has just been a ton of good information, and the way that you explained it and conveyed it it's an easy pill to swallow, right? This is exactly what I'd hoped for. Good working knowledge, kind of a crypto 101 for our audience. I feel as though that we've provided them with a tremendous amount of value today. If they didn't know what cryptocurrency or Bitcoin was before today, they certainly can have an intelligent conversation about it now. And hopefully this will be a stimulus for them to look into it, to start possibly investing in it, to start at least having a good working knowledge and grasp on what it is. Because, at least the two guys sitting in these chairs right here know that it's going to be a substantial player in the future. And hopefully they adapt that as well.
Yeah, agreed.
Thanks for being here, brother.
Yeah. Take care. It was cool.
And by the way, just for, I hope you enjoyed yourself. But just one more, I wanted to kind of reiterate it one more time at the end here. If you are interested in cryptocurrency and you want to get an investment made into mining, but you don't want to set up the servers, you don't want to do all the brick and mortar work yourself, this is the guy. The company is Ghostfruit Incorporated. Is it ghostfruit.com?
Ghostfruit.io.
Ghostfruit.io. Okay, you go to the website. I'm assuming there's some quick information and probably a funnel to get you their information, and they can get a hold of you. You guys can finance it. You don't have to pay for it all at once. You can make payments quarterly, I think you said, yearly, and just have your setup and know that you're mining Bitcoin and working towards a future of having crypto holdings. And this is the guy to do it with. Clearly, he knows exactly what the fuck he's talking about. So, thank you for being here, brother. Any last words for the audience?
Just buy some Bitcoin, guys.
Awesome, my man. Man of the free, freedom of mind, money, and media. We appreciate you being here, guys. Click like, click subscribe, smash the thumbs up, leave us a comment. We always respond. We like the good and the bad. We want you to help us get better so we can provide you value. This is Big Luke signing off. Good show, man. Good show.
That was fun.
Yes. I gotta piss so bad. Like every fucking show.